Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Engineering, School of Engineering and IT, Arkajan University, it is my pleasure to welcome our Vice Chancellor Dr. S.S. Razi sir, Director Dr. Amit Srivastav sir, Dean Students Welfare Dr. Angad Tiwari sir, Registrar Mr. Jasbir Singh Dhanjal sir, Assistant Dean Mr. Ashwini Kumar sir, and all our participants to the third session of day 3 of the National Faculty Development Program on Smart Cities, Opportunities and Development. I feel highly privileged to welcome our honorable speaker, Dr. Vidhi Bharti. Dr. Bharti has completed her PhD in Atmospheric Science from Monash University, Melbourne, and worked as a research assistant at Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies, University of Tasmania. She is an alumnus of ITC, University of Twente, the Netherlands, Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, ISRO, and NIT Allahabad. She has worked extensively in remote field projects in sub-Antarctic regions of the Southern Ocean, including IMAS project and Socrates. She has published several journal articles in topmost international journals and has served as a reviewer for various reputed international journals like International Journal of Climatology, Polar Research, Journal of Hydrology, Journal of Hydrometeorology, and several others. She has been the recipient of IIRS ISRO 2015 Gold Medal, MGS and IPRS 2016 doctoral scholarships. She has worked extensively on a wide range of research projects and fieldworks in collaboration with international scientists based in countries like USA, Australia, Canada, Dubai, etc. Currently, she works as a data scientist and educator and is the co-founder of Imaginity Labs and the Scientific Factor Science magazine. Today, Dr. Bharti is with us to talk about traffic management and infrastructure development in context of smart cities. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and a very warm welcome to Arkajan University.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really feeling very happy to present something to this unique workshop. I will try to share my presentation. I'm not really familiar with Google Meet, so. Yeah. Is it visible? Can somebody tell me? Is it visible?
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay. I'll share my screen. Is it visible now? Can somebody please tell me if it's visible?
No, ma'am, it's not visible. You have to press on present now and then a window, and you have to choose the window you are going to present.
A window, okay. Is it visible now?
Ma'am, please wait for it.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
It is?
Okay. It is visible.
Okay.
Ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible now.
Okay, great. So, as you realize that my background is environment science, GIS, and mostly math, statistics, and also a bit of IT. So, traffic management, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on this topic, and I'm sure a lot of people must have spoken about smart cities in earlier sessions. I would like to give you some brief understanding of traffic management. Recently, actually, I've been working with a PhD student who is working on traffic management. So from him, I'm learning something. So my apologies if I make any mistake. Once again, thank you so much for inviting me. First of all, I would like to give an introduction about myself. Recently, I've been active as an educator and more as a entrepreneur. And for the past few years, I've been very active in research and I've published a lot of papers. I've completed my PhD in atmospheric science from Monash University in Australia. And I've completed my master's in remote sensing and GIS from University of Twente. So I was very much in academia, but last year I plan on doing something related to bridging the gap between academia and general public. So that's what I realized during my academic years, that there's still a lot of things need to be done in bridging the gap between the general public and the scientists. So thinking of that, along with my sister, I started the Scientific Factor Science magazine. And we got an excellent response from the scientists all over the world. Everybody welcomed the idea. And what we do in Scientific Factor is that we invite researchers, academics, and even postgraduate and graduate students as well who are working on some research project or even industrial project as well. So if they want to share their research stories in their own words, because what happens is when a scientist talks to a journalist and their article and their research is published into some news article, it gets distorted in some way, and some information is lost. So that's why we thought of starting this idea that we should let the researchers directly come up with their research and talk about it on a global platform. So that was the idea about the Scientific Factor, and it's all completely free, so you don't have to pay for anything. And then we started Imaginity Labs. So basically, Imaginity Labs, we realized that in India specifically, and not just in India, but in a lot of other countries, especially in developing countries, the students are not working or getting enough experience working on projects directly. So the knowledge base is very theoretically oriented. So the idea was that that we should start something where students are more involved in building their soft skills and employability skills along with their knowledge, because Indian students are very intelligent all over the world. But what happens is in their early years, they don't get enough opportunities to work on the projects directly. So that's the main idea about starting all that. And currently, we conduct trainings and workshops and mentoring programs. And I also realized in India, the mentoring idea, the idea of mentoring is very new, and a lot of people are not familiar about it. They think that mentoring is about psychological counseling, but it's not. Basically, mentoring is about telling somebody, some experienced person is telling you how to build a career, or giving you a step-by-step guide. Maybe if you want to be a researcher, so somebody, an experienced person telling you how to be a researcher, showing you the way, that guru, shishya, parampara, that thing. So, and also we do publishing as I discussed, on the Scientific Factor. The project-based training is we are emphasizing a lot, and we are going to start soon some batches on project-based trainings. We also provide personal and group sessions, and we are happy to collaborate. And recently we did conduct one webinar on career readiness, and in future we are also planning to conduct more webinars. So that's all about what I do and what my company does. So let's get to the topic. So as you know, that most of the population is getting into urban areas now. So if we talk in terms of statistics, almost 55% of the world's population is currently living in urban areas, and that percentage is going to keep on increasing, and by 2050 like almost 70% of the world population will be living in urban areas. So that's a lot of pressure on like urbanization and on city infrastructure. So if we just talk about in terms of India, so the Indian currently the Indian population which is living in cities is around 400 million, and which is going to increase further by 57% by 2036. So given like we don't have a lot of very developed cities in India, that's a lot of pressure on already existing cities. So by 2030, the projection is that around 40% of India's population is going to reside in cities. So that's a very short time to prepare for such a rise in population. So why we are talking about smart cities nowadays? So why how did this concept of smart city come up? So basically, the idea of smart cities is that we have a lot of technology, especially in the past 2 decades, we had a technological boom. So I don't need to give you a lecture on that. You're using a device which is more powerful than the computers which were used to reach the moon. So you can imagine like how much power you have in your hands right now. So the smart idea of smart cities, like using that power, using that technology, we have to create a better quality of life for the majority of the world's population using that technology. So basically, the two words are the important concepts here. The first thing is the smartness. How do we define what if a city is smart or not? Are they just like building skyscrapers and having a high population or having a nightlife? Does that mean a city? Or like what is smart city basically? And then the other important concept is the quality of life. So we are not talking about the quality of life for one person or for a group of people. We are talking about all those people who will be living in cities. So we want a collective better quality of life for all those people. So quality of life cannot be measured with just one statistics or through one scale. So I came across like these 6 points which cover the quality of life. So basically, if you're living in a city, it has to be safe for everybody, and not just for people. It has to be safe for the assets, for the resources, for everybody in all aspects. For children, for women, it has to be safe. The other thing is that the cost of living currently, like unfortunately, the polarization of the wealth is increasing day by day, like pretty much in all countries, so which is not a good thing. So we have to bring down this cost of living for everybody. So the idea is that if you're having a good quality of life, that means you're not spending a fortune to afford it, right? So and another thing is that environment. Currently, we are getting very technological advance, and most of the world population is getting urbanized, but at the cost of environment. So about climate change, how much pollution is there. So whatever progress we have made so far, it has come at a price, and that price is environment. That price is at the cost of our planet on which we are living. So currently, like saving the environment has to be the priority on everybody's agenda. It's not just for India, but for everybody, for all people and for all countries, for all companies, for everyone. The other thing is time. Like if you're living in a city like Mumbai or Pune, like how much time it takes to reach one point to another. Like sometimes within 5 kilometers, it can take you up to 1 hour because the traffic is so much and there's so much congestion. So a smart city would be something which would save time for people, for everybody, right? The other point is like health, because I said like the environment is getting worse. So the health problems are rising a lot. And the health, not just because of the pollution, but also
Ma'am,
Yeah.
Slide is not changing.
At which slide you are at?
It is in first slide, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is it visible now?
1 second, ma'am.
I'm on slide 7.
Yes, it is now visible.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'll just revise quickly, So initially I told you about myself. So I completed my education and then I founded Scientific Factor and Imaginity Labs. I'm so sorry about this confusion. I'm sorry. So this is my company, Imaginity Labs, and this is what we do as I discussed. We conduct trainings and workshops. We do mentoring. We do publishing. We conduct webinars. And we provide project-based training and consulting and personalized and group sessions. So as I talked, like the 55% of the world population is currently living, and this is projected to increase further, not just for the world, but also for India. So for Indian population, the growth is going to be very high, like the 57%. And by 2030, 40% of the Indian population most likely are going to reside in cities. So then I talked about the smart city. What is a smart city? So basically two concepts stand out here, the smartness of a city and the better quality of life. Right? Yeah, so I was talking about the quality of life. So basically the quality of life, is defined by many terms. So here I've picked 6 terms which I think are the most relevant here. So I was talking about the health factor. So like if you're healthy, then you're happy, and then only you can enjoy your life, right? So having a good health, not just in perspective of air pollution, but also what you're eating. So whatever is being produced, is it like does it have enough nutrients? Is it enough for your health? Whatever drugs you're taking, like pretty much everything, so that you're having a long, healthy, happy life. And this is not very far-fetched, because in a lot of countries it is already happening. Like the talk about 50 years ago, the average age of the population was quite low, but through the medical changes and the technological breakthroughs, now we are expecting a good, old age, average age of people, I think by 75 or 80. So it's still a long way to go, but if we are planning to have a smart city, that also that should also comprise, have people having good health. The another thing is connectedness. So in today's over-connected world, I don't think I have to overemphasize this term, but connectedness doesn't mean that you have to post like every few seconds, you have to post something on Facebook or Twitter, but also in terms of emergency preparedness. For example, if you're in some remote area and you have some accident or some mishappening, so how do you convey it to authorities or the helping authorities immediately? So that's the kind of connectedness I'm talking about here. So if you're imagining a smart city, a city of future, these 6 things have to be fulfilled. Okay, so what is smartness?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Excuse me, madam. In
Yeah.
the quality of life.
Yeah.
Ma'am, please continue.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so if you're talking about smartness, so the smartness, basically, as I said, that it is coming out of the technological advances that we are having right now. So we are living in a world where each device is connected or can be connected to other device and sensors around you, not just your personal devices, but also CCTVs or your traffic lights, like these kind of devices and sensors I'm talking about. Also GPS. GPS is a very good example. So we are living in a world where all these devices and sensors are connected, and they're analyzing data every second. So what is happening is like you're feeding them information unknowingly. For example, you're traveling from one location to another, you're going to bank, or you're not even like you are doing some transaction from your bank, you're buying some product online. So all this data is automatically getting fed to these interconnected devices. And what it's doing, it's like analyzing data, and it is creating some decisions, and it is helping the behavioral change of people, right? So one of the good example I can think of is like the ATM machines. Initially, like 30 years ago, you had to stand in a bank line to deposit or do some any kind of transaction. But then ATM machines came up, and they smoothened the process. They made things easier. Now you don't even have to go to ATM machine. You have a banking app on your phone, and you can do any kind of transaction to anybody, right? So this kind of behavior change happened. Like if you expected your parents or your grandparents to, just do banking transaction on your phone, probably they won't be very accepting to this kind of change. But the new generation, it is already accepting, right? So we are already headed toward those kind of changes, that smartness I was talking about. Okay, so there was a survey conducted by McKinsey, and what they did was they singled out some cities in each of the continent, and then they created 37-point system based on the technology-based sensor communication open data portal, and they created the marking system for all the cities, and they tried to see how advanced our cities, how smart our cities are. So here I've just included Asia Pacific because it was a huge survey and there was a lot of results. So if you just talk about the Asia Pacific, Singapore is leading and it still has just 25 points. And if you talk about India, there are only 3 cities which are making to the mark, and those are Mumbai, Pune, and Jaipur. And Mumbai is the highest. And Jaipur is still, it's 2 points in it. So it's our cities are not even halfway through, right? So India has a long way to go in building a smart city. But what are the progress towards being a smart city? So this is the deployment of smart city applications, and the points were 55. And it was conducted based on the applications based on mobility, security, utilities, healthcare, basically quantifying the attitude towards becoming a smart city. So that is, I think, is more helpful and important. So if you talk about Asia Pacific, Seoul, which is in South Korea, it's 33 points, so just above half points. So even the best city is also not the smartest yet, right? So overall, the world itself has to go a long way. So if you talk about India, Mumbai, Pune, and Jaipur, like they're like less than still half, but at least they have that attitude of trying to achieve that smartness, right? So at least we are trying, that's the most important thing. So yeah, so Smart Cities Initiative for India, it was started recently, and I was actually reading about it, what it is, and I came to know they were starting to build 8 new cities or something like that, and which is very important because the already existing cities are so overly populated, and the infrastructure is getting old and so strained. So even though like India has started to become a smart, more towards the smartness of urban cities, but still we have a long way to go, and especially in controlling the population and towards building good infrastructure, right? So if you talk about any city, mobility is a lifeline of a city. Like in recently last year, or I don't know if there is still lockdown there, but in the pandemic, at least you must have realized that getting locked down is not the ideal scenario, right? Getting just locked up in a small room whole day. So if you're living in the city, you must have missed the city life. And then at that time, you must have realized the importance of mobility, right? So if you are thinking of a smart city, it has to be mobile. It has to be accessible. It has to be safe, right? And mobility is not just for people, but also for a lot of things. Supply chain, it's such a big industry now. People are buying more and more stuff. So one person sitting at one corner of the world is ordering stuff from another corner of the world. So this kind of mobility I'm talking about, right? So without mobility, we cannot imagine a world which is connected. So if we talk about India, it adds 50,000 cars per day. So the cities are already overcrowded and congested, and there's not a lot of good traffic systems. And already people are adding 50,000 cars per day to the congestion and pollution on its streets, right? So you can understand the importance of traffic management, smart traffic management in near future, and even now, not just in future. But what happens from the mobility? The main issue with the mobility is the carbon dioxide emissions. So if you look at the survey, so I didn't get the stats for India specifically. So this is for the whole world. So if we just look at it, so by road itself, the road traffic contributes to around 85%, around 75% of the total carbon dioxide emissions, right? And this was in 2018. So you can imagine what is the condition was in 2019, or at least before pandemic. So aviation and shipping still, and even rail, they do not contribute to enough carbon dioxide emissions. So the main culprit here is the road traffic. And that's why we are so much focused on getting this traffic management sorted out. Okay, let's have some stats. I talked about safety in the quality of life. So these are the stats I got from Quartz India. And it says like every 4 minutes, one person is killed in India because of a road accident. And over 1 million people have lost their lives on the roads in 1 decade. And the economic losses contribute to around 8.2 billion US dollars every year. So this is like huge statistics. Now you might be getting an idea that why traffic management is so important. I also got some stats for the pollution. So everybody knows that Delhi's air is the worst, one of the worst in the world. And the contribution of transport sector is almost 72% to this population, right? And automobile are like contributing from 40 to 80%. So that's a lot. And you must have realized, I don't know if anybody visited Delhi or not, that during the pandemic time, how much its air quality improved because people were not on the road, right? They were not driving, they were at their homes. So this is like a very big statistic, that automobiles basically are the main culprits. Then poor air quality is not the byproduct of automobiles on the road, but also to the urban noise also. So majority of the urban noise pollution which we're having is because of the traffic. So if like Delhi noise level is like much above the recommended value. And also aerosols emissions. So PM particulate matter 2.5 has increased to almost like, I think this is an old statistic, but I think it has increased to almost double of its level in 90s, right? So you can imagine that how traffic is not only affecting noise and all kind of pollution, also safety. So this has to be one of the most urgent things to be sorted out if we are going to have a good city. So I already talked about some points, but why do we need smart traffic systems? Like, why don't we just rely on the traditional traffic systems or just replace the cars by electric vehicles? So I'll talk about electric vehicles in short time. But basically, the main aims overall, getting the summary out of what I just discussed, is like reducing the traffic congestion should be one of the most important things. And also parking solution. The parking is a huge space, is a huge problem in India because most of the cities are very old. They were built, in ancient times. And also this road safety is a big issue in India right now. So we have to do something about reducing fatalities. Also transit planning. So transit, basically build more flyovers. Should we build more flyovers? Should we build more tunnels? Should we build more subways? So we have to, have a proper planning for transit as well. Also road systems, like I think in road systems in India, like past decade, they have been doing a lot of good work, but still road system, particularly to rural areas, has to be much more efficient. Obviously, like if you're talking about traffic, air quality, environment plays a big role, and saving time and money, especially in big cities where road rage and frustration due to traffic congestion is very common. So it's not just improving the safety and improving the environment, but also saving ourselves from the mental stress which it gives, like getting stuck in a traffic. So in a lot of cities I came to know, at least in Melbourne, I know that they have already started to implement these smart traffic systems. And this is what we need right now. This is the need of the hour right now, that if we want to improve mobility, if we want to improve emergency response, we have to revolutionize the transportation and city traffic management. So this is just one small video. So we're just showing, like, basically you have how many cars you need for 177 people, and how much. So you need 177 cars for these many people. You need these many bikes. You need 3 buses. But you need only 1 tram. I don't know if you have ever sit in a tram, but you can imagine, like, having a good public transport system, how much space, traffic, and pollution it can save you from. So having a good transportation system is crucial, right? So imagine if, like, you're stuck in a traffic and you come across these many cars versus all these people stuck in one tram. Okay, so now at least you might have got an idea that there is something called smart traffic management, but what it is exactly. So smart traffic management systems, these are systems which are comprised of technological solutions and which can be integrated at the authority level, at the municipality levels, at the vehicle level, at the personal levels, and also at the street level, right? So if you go on a street, there are cameras, there are sensors. So creating a system which interconnects the municipality, the people, and the sensors, the traffic sensors, so that there is a smooth flow of the traffic. So these kind of systems basically utilize sensors, cameras, routers, and automation to monitor, basically CCTVs or other instruments which can direct traffic, which can tell you about the congestion, which can help you solve problem. So overall, we are looking for a technological solution that can be scaled to any size, from a person level to authority level. And also it should be, very easy to use. It should be able to upgrade it at any time, just like any mobile app, right? I'll talk about an app later on. So basically the idea of traffic management is a lot like the IoT. So IoT is like Internet of Things. So having that idea that we have to create such an IoT that it acts as a smart traffic management system in itself, right? So if we are having traffic management, we will have to cover some of the aspects of it. So one aspect is that space management. As I said, like, Indian cities were built in ancient times, and especially like if you go to Banaras, I mean, like the city, the lanes are like so narrow, only one person can go through them at one time. So if we are planning to have traffic management, we'll have to sort out space, the issue of space, issue of parking, right? So where the cars will be parked, where the bikes will be parked, where the three-wheel vehicles or the rickshaws will be parked. So this kind of space management, we have to figure it out. The other thing is that intelligent transportation system. So the fleet management, like I came to know that a lot of companies are already investing into automatic trucks and smart trucks, which can travel on its own. They're autonomous and they have very little emissions, but how efficient they will be in the long run, we have to figure it out. So intelligent transportation. The other thing is connected vehicle technology. So connected vehicle technology is the backbone of this whole smart traffic management system. Basically, the idea is that every vehicle, be it a cycle, be it a scooter, be it a car or a truck, it has to be connected, or it is able to connect in real time. While you're driving it, you should be able to connect to all the other vehicles nearby in real time, right? So the other thing is transit planning. So as I said, building good roads, better roads, connecting them, optimization of routes, having flyovers, should we have a flyover, building bridges, tunnels, subways, these kind of things in transit planning, right? So if we are imagining a smart traffic management, at least these four things have to be sorted out. Okay, so connected vehicle technology. So as I said, like you are in your vehicle, you're in your car, and while you're driving, you're able to connect to all the other vehicles nearby through a wireless network. And this is the backbone of any traffic management system, so that cars can, direct you, can tell you about the upcoming congestion, can tell you about like if you're on the path to colliding with some other vehicle. So basically enhancing the efficiency of your car, your fuel, saving your time, right? In this vehicle technology, some of the things are very important here. So this V2, it's called V2X technology, and basically it connects rapidly from vehicle to vehicle, but also to vehicle to roadside unit, right? So so I'll discuss about V2X as well later on. So basically how it will help you overall if all the vehicles nearby are connected. It can help you cruise control, as I said, can save you, and optimum route planning. So route planning will help you save a lot of fuel, right? If you like, I think like in Google app, I think there is shortest route system already in Google app. I'm not sure, but yeah, so basically redirecting traffic in case of congestions, right? So reducing congestion, avoiding it altogether. Also automatically updating road signages, help you pay toll taxes, help you not cross the driving speed limits, right? Report traffic conditions. And in case of any mishappening, you should be able to connect to the nearby help centers or also communicate to the drivers. Preventing collision is one of the top priorities, but I'm not sure how they have progressed in it. Also semi-autonomous and autonomous vehicles. So in countries like US and China, there are already self-driving cars and cabs on the roads, right? So it sounds like, from a sci-fi movie that, okay, you're driving in a car and it's getting connected to all the vehicles nearby, but it's already, coming to fruition. People are already working on these kind of technologies. So as I said, like connected vehicles is an Internet of Things technology, and GPS is an excellent example. I don't know if you know how GPS works, but basically like you send a signal to the satellite, their GPS satellites, and the satellite sends you a signal. So basically telling your position in the real time, right? So there are different devices, your computer or maybe your mobile, which is getting connected to the satellite. Another example is OnStar. So you can go to OnStar website. So what they do is like they provide you assistance when needed in real time, right? So I think they have an app, and if you need any help, if you're in the remote area, if you have some problem, you run out of fuel, some emergency, you can contact them and they can provide you assistance. And as I said, like self-driving cars and cabs are already on the road. So they're going to improve further. They're going to get much better with time. So I have a video. I want you to have a quick look at it. It's really very brief and informative video.
The easiest way to think of Internet of Things is essentially imagine all the things that you use in your everyday life that you can see and experience, and some things that you don't. What would happen if those things were always connected to the internet? You're driving around a city, you want to know where the empty parking spot is. Your car is connected to the internet, the parking meter tells you where the empty spot is and you go and park. Here the concept is of a connected car, where all the things that go in the car that are connected all the time. As IoT becomes more and more prevalent, and as we connect more and more things to the internet, the efficiency gains will be huge. If we didn't have LTE, then we'd have to rely on things like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, which works sometimes quite well, and sometimes there's a lot of interference. Now, when we put LTE modems into IoT devices, now we have the ability to connect these devices seamlessly in every part of the world. When we're able to use LTE in IoT devices, it just makes the vision of IoT happen much faster and much more seamlessly. One of the big areas of impact from LTE would be in the infrastructure of the cities, because many times we want to deploy these connected devices in remote areas and also all over. So for example, we want to have all the light bulbs that are on a freeway connected over LTE modem. So if you detect some anomaly like a car crash, you're able to detect it right away and communicate back. Now, as we move from 4G to 5G, everything we're doing in the 4G space in enabling LTE devices gets much better.
Cool. Okay, so I hope that gave you an idea of this IoT of things, of connected vehicle technology. So basically, connected vehicle applies this real-time communication protocols called V2X. So basically, vehicle to everything. So V for vehicle and X for everything, right? So the idea is that your car should be able to connect to the vehicles nearby, to the sensors, to the towers in real time, to all the infrastructure, to the pedestrians in real time, right? So there are several protocols implemented for that, or are being implemented. So one is to V2I, there is V2V. So V2I is basically to connect to the traffic lights, adjusting to the speed, right? So that there is a traffic light chain and you should be able to cross the traffic smoothly. Also for preventing collisions, V2V, or any kind of hazard related protocol, V2V. And also for pedestrian and cyclists, V2P protocol. So these kind of protocols, they're like good to know. Like if you want to know more about it, you can Google them. But I think it's a good technology to know more about it. Yeah. So there is a brief video. I think like it will help you understand like what is V2X technology.
V2X is a combination of a vehicle-to-vehicle communication applications of vehicle to infrastructure. What we've done is take like a navigation system, like a GPS, like people are used to in their cars or in their cell phones, and we use that sensing technology about where we are, how fast we're moving, and in which direction we're moving. We actually broadcast that information 10 times a second to the surrounding vehicles around us. When they receive that, they can use the onboard computer to calculate where the cars are going to be, and if there's going to be a hazardous situation or a crash, we'll warn the driver through an audible or visual kind of alert to make them more aware of what's going on around them. We also use V2X technology from a vehicle to infrastructure standpoint to talk with traffic signals. That way we can advise the driver of green light or red light, and they can pattern their driving behavior to be a little more efficient from a fuel standpoint.
So I hope that was helpful to understand what really V2X technology is. Okay, so whenever we are talking about traffic, one thing is one of the most important in terms of economy. So that is fuel. Currently, like India is one of the biggest natural oil and gas consumptor. So fuel management is one of the biggest priorities in terms of smart traffic management. So not only in terms of saving, but also having a better life for your vehicle, and also giving you like good warnings and help extend the life of your vehicle as well. So there are a lot of things in fuel management. If you talk about fuel management, like if you are in a smart traffic management system, it should have the automated odometer readings. It should tell you when your vehicle needs the inspection or service time. It should tell you like how much fuel is left and how much distance you can travel in that much fuel, and when you should, where is the nearby gas station, these kind of warnings, and also related to your vehicle itself. For example, when do you need to change the tire pressure, or have the fluid warning, and these kind of things. It should be automatically inform you, so that you don't have to stress about these things, right? So one of the most important thing is also like minimizing engine idling and speed limits. So speed limits and idle engine are one of the leading reasons for a lot of pollution. So if we are able to manage that, that would definitely save us the fuel and also maybe reduce the emissions, right? The biggest thing here is that there is a rise of electric vehicles. So you must have heard about electric cars, and like here in Australia, you can now buy electric cars. They are a bit expensive, but they can save you a lot of money in the long run, right? So there was this study by McKinsey that estimate that by 2030, the overall electric vehicle sale could rise like almost like 20%. So you can see like since 2010 to 2017, there's been almost a very steep increase in people buying electric vehicles, and both plug-in and battery operated vehicles. So I think battery has come to a long way now. Earlier there was the issue with a lot of batteries, cars getting on fire because there was some issue with the battery, right? So as you can see that electric vehicles are the future, right? And here, if you talk about the global leaders, China is leading the way. So it's not surprising to me that China is the leader here. US still has a very, it's just 60%. And if Germany, France, Sweden, and Norway are in European countries which are leading this rise of electric vehicles trend. Well, basically, one of the biggest idea of having electric vehicles is to reduce the demand for fossil fuels, right? And having electric vehicles means having more demand for electricity. And meeting those demands for electricity means having more fossil fuel and natural gas or maybe coal. So it's very like, dilemma. So whether you should have the electric vehicle so that you save on the gas, but then you would need more electricity. So government will have to dig up for more natural gas anyway. So this kind of dilemma, it's still with, you know, electric vehicles. And also, like, in a lot of countries, like, what they're doing is, like, they're just replacing the gas station with the charging points. But the thing is that those many charging points will not be enough to meet the demands for the rising number of electric vehicles. So there are good side of having electric vehicles as well, but there are also very, I wouldn't say that bad points, but difficult goals, like if you want to have electric vehicles altogether. And also the most important point here is that in your electric vehicles, two metals are very crucial for battery: cobalt and lithium, right? And their demand is increasing very sharply. So I don't know, like, if they're able to have more demand than supply for cobalt and lithium, but for having battery, there is a lot of pressure right now on these two mining industries, right? So having electric vehicles is not, you know, it's going to save you from all the problems of traffic management right now. Okay, so there has been proven studies that electric vehicles, they do reduce emissions, which is one of the biggest issue right now, right? So as per one of the report by International Energy Agency, it says that the global transport is going to double, right? And the car ownerships are going to increase, right? And the demand for passenger and freight aviation is going to triple by 2070, right? And electrification and hydrogen technologies, they are able to decarbonize, you know, within decades. So decarbonization is one of the focus things in having electric vehicles right now. So more and more people, especially after pandemic, like, you know, carpooling is getting less popular given we have the pandemic situation. So more people are inclined to have solo traveling. So more people are inclined to maybe they will buy more cars, right? And having a lot more fossil fuel cars is not going to be very feasible. So obviously the shift is going to be towards electric vehicles, which would be good for emissions. But again, there are some problems related to, as I just discussed, related to having more pressure on mining industry, right? If you talk about just electrification and hydrogen, they have the capacity to phase out the emissions from motorcycle by 2040, railways by 2050, and small trucks by 2060, right? So even if we are not able to eliminate completely from cars and, you know, road transport by 2070, but at least they are going to play a big role, right? And in United States, China, and Japan, they are already, you know, supposed to phase out the conventional vehicle as early as 2040. So these are very promising figures, but there are still some problems related to that, especially when it comes to long distance road traveling by aviation and shipping. These are very difficult to, you know, remove and decarbonize. So most probably these long distance road transport are still going to run on fossil fuel for a very long time, right? Because the issue here is that the batteries are not powerful enough to run the trucks for a very long time, and that size of the truck, the batteries are not powerful enough, right? So reducing emissions is a good thing, but still we need more technology for that too, if we are going to move towards electric vehicles. But it is promising, right? Okay, so if you talk about the smart traffic management system, like what things basically it comprises of. So basically there are few systems I'm going to talk here about, not all the systems, because I don't think we have enough time. So the most important thing is having an advanced traffic management system. So basically it is an integrated solution that you can buy currently in the market. And it is comprised of many equipments like emergency calling box, variable message sign, there is a traffic counter automatic, there is a meteorological data station, there is a video incident detection system. So these kind of communication system as well. So all these equipments comprise of, and they make this advanced traffic management system. There are also other systems as well. For example, the speed violation detection system. So we want a technology. If somebody is speeding, they're able to identify it and they're able to give them a ticket. And then tunnel management system, the red light violation detection system. In Australia, like the red light violation detection system is pretty much, I think, everywhere. So if somebody is violating the red light, the sensors are able to catch its number plate, and then they get a huge fine sent to their home, So this is the automatic traffic, the red light violation system that is used here. And also for adaptive traffic control, smart parking solutions, public transport trackings, and congestion detection. So these kind of systems all together will make the smart traffic management. And some of these systems you can already buy in the market. They are already available, not for individual purchase, but for the company purchase, right? So you can read more about that. Okay, so another very important thing is micromobility. Especially a lot of people in India still, they use bicycles and they use scooters, they use rickshaws for traveling very short distance for less than 5 kilometers. So most probably if you have to go to a nearby shop, probably you'll walk or use your bicycle, right? So this is like really good for reducing traffic congestion. So what the shift is like, you don't just focus on bicycle or walking, but also provide enough e-bike solutions or scooters or shared systems so that people rely more on them rather than traveling in the cars, right? So micromobility systems can not only help reduce emissions, but they can also help avoid traffic congestions altogether, right? So as you know, like India is having 14 out of 20 most polluted cities in the world. So micromobility system could be a great thing for Indian population. Some problems or some issues with it is that weather conditions could be a barrier here, because most of the time especially in daytime, it's so hot that you're going to travel on your scooter, right? And also the battery operation and safety. So safety is one of the biggest thing here. Like you don't want to be on your e-bike, at night somewhere. Probably you would prefer being in a car if you're traveling at night, right? So if we sort out these kind of issues, then micromobility systems could be very good for smart traffic management. So if we talk in terms of money, so the pedal assisted bicycles, they cost around 15,000 to 30,000. So the average cost of running is around 20 paisa to 40 paisa per kilometer, and which makes like e-bikes and scooters and these bicycles like a good proposition for lower income to middle income people. And currently, like micromobility systems are very popular here in Australia. So people use a lot of scooters. So you might have seen that electric scooter, you just climb on it and even electric bikes, they're getting very popular here. So not just for short distance, for 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, but also people are using for like up to 4-5 kilometers as well. Okay, so currently like 66% of the trips are done for less than 5 kilometers on bicycles, scooters, or by foot. And for medium to 5 to 20 kilometer distance, there are 22% trips of India. So you can see like still people rely more on their bicycles and scooters, right? So they are trying to, basically the idea is to reduce the car ownership, especially in the West. And people are embracing it. It's not like they're, protesting against it, but they are embracing it because it is convenient, right? You don't have to have a huge parking space or parking lot in your house anymore, because more people are now shifting to renting apartments. So they don't have their own allotted parking spaces. If they don't, they can rely on these kind of micromobility solutions. Only for a long distance they can have car sharing, or they can rely on public transport. And already there are companies in India who are very focused on micromobility. So there are companies like Rapido. I don't know you've heard about it. So basically, they're having this shared two-wheelers, and also for mini scooters, companies like Mobisi and Lime Bike, they are bringing these kind of easy and cheap mini scooters, which are very cost effective and also very convenient for one person. So bicycles have always been there. So they are like more bicycles now getting focused on having electric bicycles, right? So these companies are already in the market and you can know more about them. So if we just talk about India and how it's going to grow in future, so the prediction is that up to like by 2025, 44% rise is going to be in electric two-wheelers market, right? So people are embracing it, especially like the three-wheelers or the rickshaw. You might have seen electric rickshaw on Indian roads. So by 2026, most probably 80%, there will be 80% electric rickshaws on Indian roads, which is a very good thing because I think these rickshaws are one of the main reasons for a lot of pollution on Indian roads. Also, especially the electric scooters, by 2030, they are going to exceed 2 million sales, so which is a good stat. So overall, the new generation and the people now, they're accepting this kind of micromobility solutions. And it is not going to slow down at all. It is going to continue rise, especially when we are having this kind of pandemic situation. So people basically are preferring their own vehicles, even their own scooters if they don't have cars, right? So the trend of micromobility is going to increase. So if you're planning to have a business, maybe start something in micromobility. The only thing is, the only issue is that we do not have adequate infrastructure, especially not enough sidewalks and bicycle lanes. And also there is an issue of safety. Yeah, so like maybe you've parked your bike somewhere, so there is issue of vandalism or stealing. So if these a couple of issues are sorted out, so I think micromobility is going to be very popular. Okay, talking about the smart apps. So there, if we have a lot of different systems interconnected, sensors and technology interconnected, we would need a lot of apps as well. So there are already a lot of app development in this field, especially related to transit information, transit payment, and the infrastructure, the traffic signals, and smart parking. Like smart parking, I think I've seen the smart parking system. Basically, you go to the parking lot, and it shows you which parking lot is available in real time, right? And also car sharing, bike sharing. Bike sharing, yeah, I think I'll talk about one smart app. Yeah, real-time navigation. So if somebody is planning to build smart apps, basically most probably focus on these directions, for smart traffic management. Okay, one thing I was very excited to talk about was this mobility as a service solution. So mobility as a service is, if you have heard about this term, software as a service. So what it is, basically, it's like having traffic options like you have Netflix. So basically, it's a Netflix business model. So like you have all the TV series, documentaries and movies and all together in one platform called Netflix, right? So the idea is that you have this kind of integrated platform for transport or traffic as well, right? So you have different transportation system, probably even like, for example, buses, trams, bicycle, cabs, these kind of integrated, these kind of systems in a one integrated platform. So already there is an app called Vim, which is run in Helsinki in Finland. And actually, I tried to download this app and I couldn't access it, but at least I got the idea that like what it is. So you have all the modes of public and private transportation in that app. You, like as I said, bus and car share or cabs or bikes, right? And in that app, you can select your destination. So it can tell you like, if you want to reach from point A to B, probably you should first get on a bike travel for 1 kilometer. From 1 kilometer, you can get a bus at this time, and the bus will pick you up and then drop you maybe 1 kilometer away from your point B, and then you take maybe cab or car share or something, and then you can reach your, basically like all kind of transportation system in one app, right? And you can pay within that app, so you don't have to pay cash or anything. So everything in just one service. So this is how this WIM app looks like. So you can see like it shows you a map, basically like where you can get the trains, buses and trams. And you have the option to travel by public transport, bikes, scooters, taxis. And if you take a bike, it can show you the cyclist ID, your PIN number, so you can access the bike. Actually, the shared bike systems are like gaining a lot of popularity. In US, I used this system, shared bikes. So basically the idea was there were some dedicated shared bike spaces where you can, everybody parks the bikes there. You have an app, you scan that app and your bike unlocks itself, right? And so you take the bike, you travel to the destination, and you park that bike to the nearest bicycle station again, right? So, and that bike, it records the kilometers you have traveled and the money you are supposed to pay. So it automatically deducts from your app. So this is like very, very convenient. And in future, mobility as a service might be very popular. Okay, so there are some major advantages to this MaaS service. So intermodal travel, as I discussed, but also you don't have to worry about tickets. If you forgot your wallet, that's okay, it doesn't matter. And also the payment and enforcement is like, you don't have to worry about payments, like it automatically, recharges itself, like you recharge your mobile phone. And so basically it's a like no stress solution for all. The only obstacle here, or I would say the big obstacle here, is having an infrastructure, right? So you have to have such kind of infrastructure where you're able to get the bike and make sure that nobody steals that bike away, right? Then all the transportation operators have to cooperate well. And also the data providers, like, you have to make sure that your internet doesn't go away while you're driving on these systems. So if these things are sorted out, then I think mobility as a service can be very successful. Okay, so till now I just talked about all the good things about smart traffic management and all, but things are not as easy as they seem, especially like when we are talking about some technology which is so huge that it comprises all the, devices and the network and all those things. So one issue here is that sensor overload, right? Your system or your mobile phone is overloaded with so much information, right? The another thing is too much surveillance. In order to make smart traffic management systems successful, we need to have a lot of CCTVs or cameras. That is a lot of surveillance. Basically, you don't have any privacy on the road, right? So that could be very problematic in a lot of societies. Also, the applications overload and integration. So if you have different apps, maybe you have MaaS or you have smart parking, you have to make sure that they are integrated well. For all that to work, you need a lot of electricity and a lot of data, a lot of Wi-Fi, and you have to make sure that it's seamless, right? So I don't know if there is scope right now, like for these kind of breakdowns, but in future, like if you are having a smart traffic management system, you have to make sure that power and data demands are seamless. Another is data storage, like all the time devices downloading a lot of data. We would need a lot of data storage for that. Also for data security, like if your presence is always on the internet, you have to make sure that, you are secure, your data is secure, your information is secure, nobody has the access to your house or home or your office or your personal data. So this becomes very important when every system is connected to every other system. Data security, as you might be knowing, that last year there were a lot of hacking, even in government systems. So data security, cyber security is a big issue right now. And also for policy changes, if we are having a smart traffic management system and we are planning that everything is connected to everything, we should be having proper policies for this kind of data exchanges and privacy of people who are using it. So we need to have a lot of policy changes as well. And the biggest issue is managing funds and investments to the infrastructure. How much infrastructure we should build that it should be enough for everybody. So money is obviously, it's always a big issue, but if you're planning to have a smart traffic management system, so we would need a lot of money, given like how big India is. Okay. So COVID has changed some of the projections, as I discussed on this mobility scenario. So basically, I just talked about that if we are having mass, there should be intermodal travel and public transportation should be all connected. But more and more people are not traveling by public transportation. In fact, it has fallen by 70 to 90% in major cities across the world, and probably it will be like that because people are not sharing space, or there are rules and laws that you have to maintain a certain distance, social distancing. So public transport is going to stay unpopular for some time. So people are, a lot of people, they lost their jobs, and there's already crisis for money. So they are not planning to buy in micro-mobility systems and these kind of systems, right? So people are not investing in these systems, or are currently unwilling. Also, we were talking about reducing the private car ownership, but given this scenario, people are preferring traveling by own cars, even to nearby distances, or walking, or just biking. So overall, like, public transport system is getting unpopular. Also, if a lot of people are working permanently from work, working from home, so there will be definitely reduction in commutes. So that would change the projections, and how many vehicles and the time, traveling and vehicles travel. So these kind of projections would change, and we have to wait like what would be the future projections for mobility. Okay. So overall, there will be less pool trips. Pool trips means like car sharing. So there will be less sharing. There would be more emphasis on messaging and proper communication. Mask, protective sheet, that's okay. And also for proper ventilation, so no overcrowded buses. Also, people are preferring, or might prefer, cashless payments and proper sanitation. So these kind of things, like if you're traveling or if you're using the transportation systems, these things would be the priority post-COVID. Okay, so I hope that my presentation was informative to you. So I'm happy to have some questions, and thank you so much once again. I hope it was informative. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, kindly ask. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. It was an honor to have you with us for this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a complete pleasure for me, and I hope my presentation was helpful to you, for you all to get some more information about traffic systems. Thank you so much.